You wake to the sound of canvas tearing. Not your tent, not your bed, someone else's, far away, 60 years in the past, on a nameless slope in the Ural Mountains. The wind is howling at more than 20 meters per second, according to later weather reconstructions, and the temperature has fallen below -20. Inside the tent, 9 experienced hikers are pressed together for warmth. Something happens. Investigators will never agree on exactly what, but the evidence they recover, weeks later, will be precise, frozen into the snow like a crime scene in ice. Cut from the inside slashes in the tent fabric. Bare footprints and sock prints leading down into the darkness. No sign of a struggle, no other tracks, just a single file of fading impressions disappearing into the tree line. And then, scattered across 1.5 kilometers of mountainside, the bodies, faces turned to the sky, bones broken, eyes missing. This is not a campfire story. This is case file number 559, opened in the Soviet Union in February 1959, and still not fully closed. On January 23, 1959, a group of 10 students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnic Institute in Sverdlovsk set out on a winter trek to earn their highest-level hiking certification. They were led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, a meticulous engineering student known among his peers for his caution and methodical planning. Archival Institute records and surviving diaries identify the others: Zinaida Kolmogorova, Ludmila Dubinina, Rustam Slobodin, Yuri Doroshenko, Alexander Kolevatov, Yuri Krivonischenko, Nikolai Thibault-Brignoles, and Semyon Zolotaryov, a war veteran who joined the group at the last minute. Their planned route would take them through the northern Ural Mountains, toward the remote peak of Otorten. According to regional maps, the area they would cross was marked in the language of the indigenous Mansi people as Koletsyakal, usually translated as Dead Mountain. Local usage, later recorded by Soviet ethnographers, suggests the name referred not to ghosts, but to the fact that little game could survive on its barren slopes. It was not supposed to be a supernatural warning. Photographs recovered from their cameras show them laughing, building a small stove for their tent, and posing in the snow, unaware of what awaited them beyond the tree line. Diary entries and exposed film tell the beginning of the story clearly. The group travels by train, truck, and ski, gradually moving away from settlements into the emptiness of the northern Urals. On January 28th, one member, Yuri Yudin, turns back because of illness. His survival later makes him the only living witness able to describe the group in detail before they vanish. On January 31st, they leave the last inhabited area and pitch a temporary camp in the forest. The next day, according to Dyatlov's journal, they begin climbing toward the pass. Bad weather closes in. Low visibility causes them to veer off their planned route and stop on the eastern slope of Koletsyakal. Instead of descending to the shelter of the tree line, they set up their large canvas tent on the open mountainside, anchoring it with skis and shoveling snow around the base as a windbreak. Night falls. Sometime in the hours that follow, forensic reports indicate the calm routine of an experienced expedition collapses. When search teams finally find the tent in late February, it is partially buried, leaning sideways, its supporting ski poles snapped. The entrance is closed, but several long slits have been cut from the inside. Inside, investigators catalog boots left neatly along the wall, half-eaten food, and the remains of the stove not yet assembled for the night. Clothing inventories later show that at least some of the hikers fled without jackets, without proper footwear, some in only underwear. From these facts, the search parties reconstruct a desperate flight down the slope. Following the trace of footprints, they reach the edge of the forest nearly 1.5 kilometers below. Beneath a tall cedar tree, they find the first 2 bodies, Doroshenko and Krivonischenko, lying near the ashes of a small fire. According to autopsy records, both are barefoot or in socks, dressed in only light clothing, their skin already darkened by cold and exposure. Branches above them are snapped, suggesting they tried to climb into the tree, perhaps to look back toward the tent. Between the cedar and the tent, rescuers discover 3 more bodies, Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin, spaced as though they were crawling or staggering uphill when they died. For more than 2 months, the search continues for the remaining 4 hikers. Helicopters, students, soldiers, and local Mansi hunters comb the frozen valley. Snowstorms erase clues as quickly as they are found. Finally, at the beginning of May, a Mansi searcher probing the deep snow near a small ravine feels his pole strike something solid. For meters below the surface, rescuers uncover a pit in the snow, lined with branches and scraps of clothing, as if someone had tried to construct a shelter. In that improvised den, they find the last 4 bodies. The bodies in the ravine do not look like victims of simple hypothermia. Autopsy photographs and reports describe injuries that investigators at the time compared to a car crash. Dubinina's chest is crushed, multiple ribs broken on both sides. Yet, according to the forensic doctor, there are no corresponding external bruises. Her tongue and parts of her soft palate are missing. Official documents note this, but do not agree on whether the loss happened before or after death. Thibaut Brignol's has a depressed skull fracture. Zolotaryov's ribs are shattered. Kolevatov, though less obviously damaged, shows signs of trauma and early decomposition around the eyes. All 4 are wearing more clothing than the others, some of it taken from their dead friends near the cedar, suggesting a desperate attempt to survive longer in the cold. But their injuries resist easy explanation. In the case files, the lead investigator writes that the force required to cause such internal damage would have been extreme, yet the snow above them is undisturbed. No avalanche debris, no sign of the ravine walls collapsing. And still, whatever hit them struck with enough violence to break bones without breaking skin. The criminal investigation opens on February 26, 1959, after rescuers report the abandoned tent. Witness statements from searchers, Mansi residents, and military personnel are taken and compiled into case file 659 of the Sverdlovsk prosecutor's office. The official conclusion, issued in May, is strangely vague. The hikers died, it says, because of a compelling natural force. No one is named as responsible. Inside the sealed Soviet archive, however, the details accumulate. Reports note traces of radioactivity on some items of clothing, without linking them to a cause. Internal memoranda refer to unofficial discussions about weapons tests, secret rockets, even possible encounters with local criminal elements. But none of these theories make it into the final public statement. The pass itself is quietly renamed in honor of Dyatlov. Families are given the bodies and allowed brief funerals under supervision. According to later interviews, many parents are warned not to ask questions, not to stir up rumors that might be interpreted as criticism of the state. For those who survive the aftermath, the Dyatlov Pass is not a legend, it is a wound. Yuri Yudin, the 10th member who turned back, later tells journalists he feels as though he borrowed his life from the 9 who did not return. He spends decades reviewing documents, attending memorials, and visiting the grave sites. Relatives recall that he would wake from nightmares in which he saw the bodies again, just as they appeared in the morgue photographs. Parents of the dead hikers describe a similar haunting. Some keep their children's rooms untouched for years. Others refuse to speak publicly, fearing both the authorities and their own memories. Investigators, too, are affected. According to later testimony, some of the young prosecutors and pathologists assigned to the case request transfers. One recalls the unnerving stillness of the site, the empty tent under a gray sky, the mountain wind erasing their footprints even as they walked. The case closes, but the images remain. Charred tree branches, frostbitten faces, the unnatural angle of a broken limb caught forever on film. Today, satellite images, avalanche simulations, and declassified documents offer possibilities, not certainty. The wind on Kolet Cycle still erases footprints, and somewhere beneath the snow lies the answer to why 9 people stepped barefoot into the dark and cold.